Welcome to Alternate Tone. I'm Micah. I thought it'd be a really fun way to start off here by opening up an old session that I did some production and some writing and mixing in. So, a little bit of background. This track is from Austin McKenzie, a friend of mine. I was fortunate enough to work with him, I guess, 2 records ago on a few tracks on that, just a little bit of mixing and a little bit of production. And with those 2 tracks, we found a really good rhythm and a really good energy together. And I did all 10 tracks of his last album called In Living Color. I had a really good time making this with him. This was kind of my first foray into the pop realm. Austin is he's a really fast and a really concise writer. He knows exactly what he's going for, but he has a lot of flexibility. As long as the story is getting told, he's kind of down for whatever. He wants to get pitched on ideas, and I would say kind of the strong part of us collaborating together is that there's a tension in a great way, because he has really, really clear ideas about the narrative and really clear ideas about, like, especially the vocal performance, but he's willing to be challenged on a lot of things. He's willing for me to pitch him on a whole lot of different things. And then he reins me in too. Sometimes I go too far in one direction, and it's about finding a little bit of a middle ground together, because we've got to make sure that it still feels like him. And I think the more we work together, the better we get into that flow. So 10 tracks, and we were feeling really, really good by the end of this last record. I don't entirely remember at what point in the record making process we ended up doing this track called Special. I remember that it was kind of towards the end of that. He'd been going back and forth about the idea of having a feature on it, and he decided eventually to go for it. And so he got his longtime boyfriend, Kevin McHale, to hop on the track, and we went to the studio for one day. We did all the backing vocals, and we had a great time with Kevin. Kevin was a hoot and a holler. When I go through this, I'll just kind of talk about kind of top to bottom how I approached it, how we approached it as a team, the things that Austin knew and the things that Austin brought, the things that I brought, and then the way that he gave me feedback in order to get the product that he was happy with, and one that I'm really, really happy with too. So with that being said, let's just hop into it. Let's see. So the way that Austin and I went about producing these tracks, oftentimes he would come to me, he'll demo something in GarageBand, or he might have Logic, but he kind of does a basic demo. In that demo, usually there's a solid sense of lyrics. The lyrics might change, some of the phrasing might change, but the song is definitely in there, and some specifics about the musical environment that the track is going to live in. So for this, he gave me this bounce out of his session, and you'll kind of hear how many clear ideas are formed by the time it comes to me, and you'll hear, maybe I'll kind of explain some of the things that I'm listening for. So I'll play a little bit of Austin's demo from the top.
I just want you to feel special. I just want you to feel special. Gonna treat you like holy wine. I could drink all night.
Let's skip ahead a little bit just to show you how many things are kind of locked in, or how many ideas he's bringing in terms of the arrangement. Usually by the time something comes to me from him, he's got a rhythm, a feel going. He's got definitely a lot of harmonies, and he's got a sense of maybe where the ups and downs are. But as you can probably hear, there's a lot of space for me to pitch ideas. There's a lot of space for me to work. So when I heard this demo, a few things stood out to me. I really wanted to make sure that we got a sense of progression through the track. So a little bit more chordal information. I definitely wanted to feel like there were peaks and valleys dynamically. So grows, some swells, and then some cutoffs, right? And he kind of implies several places for that to happen, and it's about me kind of mining out the right ones. So let me just play you a little bit of what the finished product kind of sounded like, because it definitely took some tweaking, but many of the ideas that I pitched Austin on, the essential idea made it into the final. So here's a little bit of that.
I just want you to feel special. Yeah. I just want you to feel special. Ooh. Gonna treat you like holy wine. I could drink all night. I just want you to feel special. Yeah. So baby, get to my level.
And just so you hear a little bit of how it grows. A couple things that I brought him, I think when he kind of brought it to me, he was thinking he definitely wanted something funky. I just felt rhythmically it was a little more conducive to like imply a little bit of Motown sound to it. I really enjoy using a drum machine and tracking to a drum machine rather than a metronome. That CR78 sound, I think, does quite a bit. And then I just added some live claps. So that was one of the first things that I pitched him on. And then again, a little bit more like Motown-y drums. And I think the first time that I pitched him on it, it was like kind of drawing a contrast between super retro, old-fashioned sounding percussion elements like that. And then the samples that I brought in were much more neo-soul sounding. And those kind of ended up landing in like a Justin Timberlake-y kind of place, and that wasn't the right feeling for the song. So I remember we ended up kind of committing to that retro drums, like Motown kind of feel. So I remember doing a version where that was in there, and once we knew that the Motown thing was kind of where we were going to go with the rhythm section, I remember redoing a lot of the guitar and bass stuff. So the bass itself, I have a Hofner with flat wounds back there, and that's what this ended up being. Right? Which is super selling it. I think a few things that really kind of tell that sound story there are the, I have a bank of melodic samples in here. Let's see what's even in there. I don't know. Yeah. Kind of sounds like a xylophone, kind of sounds like some like little guitar chugs, just something to give it a unique texture, right? And then I think that the bass really helps it. And then let's get into some of the other stuff here. So let's see what I did here. Strat straight into a spring reverb. I mean, maybe that has a little bit more edge than you would have in Motown, but I used to have a Hofner very thin guitar as well, like a hollow body, and that also had flat wounds on it, and that has this sound, which I think also really, really sells it. I love Sound and Color by Alabama Shakes, and that album has so many great guitar tones. This, for me, really, it kind of lives in that world, right? Okay, and then let's get CJ in here. So one of my good buddies, CJ, is a killer horns player, and I just felt maybe if we were doing kind of the Amy Winehouse thing, if we were doing kind of the whole sound, I just felt like horns were really going to do it. So I definitely would have written this part out and then brought CJ in for a day. He has his own ribbon mic that sounds really good with how he plays, and it might have gone through a pedal board too. I don't entirely remember, but let's hear CJ's horns. Oh yeah. Yeah. And then later on down the line, I remember we recorded a lot of stuff that that ended up working. Actually, I kind of want to skip to my favorite part, the end. I just really think this sounds good. Yeah. One kind of fun thing about that, I remember I was trying to get it again to sound pretty era specific. And I just remember like driving the hell out of this thing. I think out of context, they're super distorted, but in context, it's the thing that helps them poke through. And I think by the time we get to that end, it sounds really clean. Yeah. And then other things that help those moments are just, I had some MIDI glockenspiel that I put on here. It's just a free plugin with a little bit of gain to compensate. And then, yeah, just to put it in the room a bit. Yep. That sounds about right. And then to support, this is probably strummed guitar that goes under that. Yep. That is me. I am not a guitar player, and it is very not clean. I don't have to be great in order to, I think, again, sell the idea. Let's go to something that I'm really, really proud of. This is something from the demo that I first sent Austin. This is a very, very Micah thing. I love like filtered guitar effects or something that like kind of sounds synthy, sounds kind of has just a really distinct texture to it. That is totally me. And that, I definitely pitched him on that sound earlier on, but once we decided that Kevin was going to have a place in this track, and his phrasing, we thought that it would go really, really well. It has a little bit of interplay with what Kevin ends up singing. Let's see.
Like cherry cream in the summer. Yeah. I want my tongue in the center. Ooh, I want my tongue all over fingertip and better grip. And now we're getting into something different. So let's get in position, cause now I'm drifting.
Yep. You get the idea. Before we hop up into the vocal stuff, I think a great way to round out the instrumental, since we're kind of down here, is to bring up an instance where we just needed live drums. So I was asking around, and one of my friends is in a group with Mike Avename. He is an Avid artist, so he has presets and loops with Avid and Pro Tools. He's got a bunch of Waves presets, and I use them. They're awesome. He's a great dude. Super nice, super professional to work with, and just really considerate of what we were trying to do. I think I gave him a really, really clear idea. The samples really told it. But when Mike was recording these, before he did the pass, he sent me options for the snare, because he was just like, hey, what are you trying to do here? Let me make sure that I give you exactly what you're going for, because he has those options. So I remember him texting me just a few samples of the snare sound, and we found it right away. Didn't take long. And then he rips out 3 takes in like 2 hours, sends it over as a Pro Tools session. And I think I just ended up going with one of the takes. When you have a drummer as good as Mike, who has the feel down, who has the sounds, and has a really solid sense of where the drums should sit in the track, I mean, really, like, these are all EQ moves just for the sake of making sure everything sits in space. And then just reining it in dynamically with some compression is probably all that needed to happen. Otherwise, he gave me some awesome stuff. And I cut in for the sake of like expanding dynamically. I only cut the rooms in when we went to the chorus. That sounds awesome. I think a huge part of the Motown sound is the mono overhead rather than stereo. Oh, awesome. Yeah, he just tuned them the right way. And then let's see what this EFX mic is. I think it was a trash mic. Yeah. And that's the one that I ended up sending to the spring reverb to really push that sound. And they need a great sounding parallel that looks like it made its way. But there's probably not a ton of automation on it. Yeah, I'm not seeing a ton of automation. Probably sat right where it needed to. That's Mike. He's the best. We worked with him for a couple other tracks on this record, and I'll definitely bring him up again. Let's go into the vocals. This is probably an area that I would do quite differently now. I'm probably a little bit more organized or a little bit more choosy about how I'm processing things. But Austin is a great singer. This was probably a few takes that I had to comp together. We get really, really thorough. I'm definitely helping vocal produce Austin. Like, I'm trying to get him to sing out a little bit more. Or like, I like to think about it as like ramps. Like, how small can we start? How big do we end up getting, right? So this has probably been gained around at some point. Right? But really nothing that fancy going on. Yeah, some C4.
I just want you to feel special.
Just helping even out some of the resonances, but nothing crazy. I remember using R channel a lot because I didn't have RVox. Because this is the RVox compressor. I now have RVox and I use that a lot more just because it's a little bit lighter on your CPU. And then I'm usually, and maybe some would frown upon this, maybe it's overcompressed. I don't know. I just get all of the control that I want by gaining into this set of compressors, right? I think of RVox as like putting everything in a box. And then I think about 1176 as helping grip your consonants a little bit more to help pull everything towards the front. And then again, like an LA2A is again helping put it into a box just a little bit more, but loose enough that we still get all that dynamic movement that we want. Nowadays, I rock a whole suite of effects on the voice, and this looks like pre that. But on here, yeah, definitely a spring reverb. Actually, 2 spring reverbs. This is the most resource-intensive plugin that I have, so I'm probably using it pretty sparingly. And then, yeah, an echo cat just to sell like the slap back verb and a little bit of a decapitator to distort it or get it to like bite a little bit more. Another thing we do with Austin is oftentimes split out all of his, because he's a lot of punches, like phrases that are fully built out harmony stacks, right? So, we get over to here, yeah, chorus punches. So if we get here, this is a fully like fleshed out. 'Cause baby, which are in the demo. I think we just retract them with a nicer mic. Yeah, here we go. When we went into the studio, I remember recording this with an Avalon 737. And what I like about the Avalon 737 is the ability to ride the gain knob because the pot's smooth. So I can do things like this.
'Cause I gotta show you how I know you, even in the dark.
So he can get in where he's like kind of quietly doing it, and then he can belt. Right, and what I'm doing, I just labeled that for my own sake, but what we're probably doing is putting this on loop, and then as he's singing, I can, in real time, adjust the gain setting. Oftentimes when Austin and I are working together, we'll, if we do, like, we'll track some temp stuff before we maybe go into a studio and do stuff. Just depends on the situation. In this case, we tracked these temp BGs and really liked them. Yeah. And maybe we tried to like re-record them. Maybe we tried some other stuff, but the way that those were sitting, the way that those were hitting, were just the right answer, right? And so in that case, above all the technical stuff, or like the right way to do it, it's just grab that, it sits fine. I don't think I even processed it. A lot of times in order to get like texture and stuff, we're doubling a lot.
All tight, baby, want it, got it, lock it, rock it, till it's all right.
That's the kind of stack now that I would probably vocal line, but this is probably pre knowing about that software. Yeah, so we went to the studio that I used to work at, and we had a nice voiceover stage that also makes a great vocal booth, and we cut Kevin.
Better grip and now we're getting into something different, so let's get in position, cause now I'm drifting on you.
And I don't know why, maybe just to make him pop, maybe just to give him a little bit of different vocal character to him. I can see looks like I had some C4, some 1176 for whatever reason. And then maybe just a little bit more control, or like, I always think of the CL1B as kind of like jelly. Like it's very clear, transparent compression. And so it allows you to do maybe a lot of things that RVox kind of does. RVox is just a little bit less, finessed. I don't know how else to describe it. That's just kind of my internal mind. Oftentimes when I'm producing for Austin and I'm demoing out an idea, Austin and I have relatively similar vocal ranges. And so if I think like a harmony part's gonna sound good, like if I'm like, hey, you should sing, you should do your thing here, but I want to sell him on it, or I want to just kind of, show him what it is, I'll usually do it. So it's called Micah Scratch. Let's see what this is. But I would venture to say, if this is this is probably Austin singing the same thing. Yeah. Right? He just has a little bit like silkier kind of tone. Yeah, so sometimes I make it all the way to the end, sometimes I don't. Just depends on the track, right? Just depends on what's right. The other thing that we did here was we had some friends. It looks like there's definitely a sample in here, but we had some friends come through and make some party noises for the party section.
Woo! All for you, baby. Hey, come on.
And then, oh yeah, we would have, the same day that we went into the studio to do a lot of the leads, we probably had, oh yeah, that's right, Vanya was there. And our friend Vanya came and sang, what did she sing? Oh yeah. This is probably all of us singing all together.
All night, baby, got it all tight.
And then same group, just over and over again. We were really trying to make that sound big. So there's a lot of us and it's 5 people every time.
'Cause baby,
Hey, that sounds like a choir to me. And that's probably getting, that spring that's telling a lot of the story, and some plate. Ironic that I called it a plate when I think it's a spring reverb. Somebody correct me if it's not. I would nowadays might do things a little bit differently, but if we just get a bird's eye view of what this looks like, we just get a sense that there's actually not a ton arrangement wise. It's just the layering. It's just the thing that's helping sell the sound to get us over the line, right? There's no crazy production in this. It was a heavy commitment to the era that we're kind of trying to pull from. But we're having fun with it, right? There's some synths, there's some other things in there that kind of pull it out just from being a straight, like, revivalist kind of track. Actually, one little thing that I thought was fun, I am really lazy about writing parts. Doesn't mean I don't do it. It just means that if I can make it ear candy, I do. So over here, we go from the verse into the pre, probably. Right, so if that's that, that's the Moog thing. So if we get that, so that part is this. And that line I wrote, and then once CJ got in the room, that line becomes like a response in the second verse. There's that little horn squeak in there, but in context, I think it just makes it sound really fun. I don't know. I just really like it. So it stayed in. I love those things that add a little bit of character. I think nowadays I'd probably organize this a little bit differently, but I do see a few things that I do. Obviously, just God Particle on the master. I really try and pull everything together before the master bus as much as possible. Sometimes it needs to happen at the master bus, but there's plenty of stages here as plenty of buses that are doing quite a bit of stuff over here. Once we get to notes with Austin, vocals notes end up being kind of the majority of things, right? It's just making sure everything's poking through in the right place, which is another reason why in general, especially if I fold his aux out, yeah, this is maybe some light tape saturation. I don't have that anymore. But that's why these phrases are all on different things, is so that I can pull just those lines up or down. I maybe at the time was doing some summing stuff. I now do a different way of plug-in summing. So like virtual mix console, you can like group different channels on a tape machine or virtual console. Now I'm using the Waves NLS if I do it at all, but I think Austin that's getting done to Austin just to make him kind of blend into the music a little bit more, just give it a little bit more glue. Looks like the vocal verbs go to something, and I would have treated those probably just cleaning up a little bit of mud so they get out of the way. Yeah, I guess all in all, really nothing boundary pushing going on in the track, right? It's about having fun. It's all executed with a little bit of humor to it, and a lot of playfulness, right? And so I'm trying to bring as much of that into the production and the process as possible. And the end product is this thing that, yeah, it definitely has an era to it, right? But it's not beholden to that. It's got all these other things going on that help make it feel more like a contemporary pop song. And more importantly than anything, Austin's trying to tell a story, right? And this song falls at a very particular point in the album for a reason. And so not only are all of these decisions made because they're right for the song, but it's because they're right for the album. I think we felt like in order to transition moods on the album, we needed one send-off. We needed some kind of dynamic high, right? And by the time we get down here, and for my own ego, I'll play that final mix rather than the the mix that's missing plugins. That feels like a big dynamic high. Yeah. Yeah, right? So check out more of Austin's music. I'll probably be breaking down more of it as I go along. But this was a great track, and definitely be breaking down some more stuff in the future. So until then, signing off. Take it easy.